There is renewed pressure on Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi to step down from power. The UK has thrown out his remaining diplomats in London and recognized Libya's opposition in Benghazi. Dr. Joseph Kashishan is an author on Middle East affairs and a Gulf Times columnist. He joins us now from Los Angeles. And Doctor, good to speak with you. How significant in your mind is this development that the British government is recognizing the NTC?
Well, better late than never. It took them a while to follow up on the promises that they had made several weeks ago. Finally, they got around to doing it. I think it's about time. The freedom fighters, which are pejoratively called rebels, need all the help that they can get. And I think that they need the kind of recognition that the Cameron government finally got around to giving them.
Yeah, the British Foreign Minister says the decision reflects the National Transitional Council's increasing legitimacy, competence, and success in reaching out to Libyans across the country. I take it from your first answer that you would agree with that assessment.
Well, the council today is the only alternative to the Gaddafi regime. I think that for the past several months, these 11 members have worked day and night to not only get their act together and have legitimacy in front of the people of Libya, but also in front of the international community. And pretty much one can make the argument that they've been quite successful in the Arab world and in the rest of the world, with the few exceptions, of course, Russia and China being their weak points for the time being. But more or less, these folks, these 11 folks, despite all their differences, have really put differences aside, and they've worked very closely, hand in hand, to present an alternative to the Gaddafi regime. In my estimation, and I think that in the minds of the Libyan population, there are no alternatives for the time being to the members of the council.
Yeah, 11 people trying to make decisions. Boy, you know, how is it that they've been able to work through differences? Because you don't get agreement all the time on all issues. In more cases than not, you end up with a talking club.
Well, of course, this is a very legitimate criticism that all of us make, really. And they have reflected differences amongst themselves. It's been very difficult. On the other hand, they are doing two things, and sometimes we forget this. On the one hand, they're fighting a war, haphazard war, because they don't have the means to do it. Yet, on the other hand, in all the liberated areas from the Gaddafi regime, these council members are supposed to provide for health care, for police protection, for usual living conditions that most citizens of Benghazi and all the other cities between Benghazi and Tripoli presumably expect from their government. So their writ is really a very long writ, but they have been more successful, I would say, than they have been failures. On certain issues, granted, they have got to get a momentum going, especially in terms of their positioning vis-a-vis Russia and China. They have not been quite successful in persuading those guys.
Doctor, one last one, and I know you've been asked this question a number of times, so I'll ask it myself. How does this end in your estimation?
Well, it ends in two ways, really. It ends, on the one hand, when the freedom fighters go all the way to Tripoli. For that, they need weapons, they need manpower, they need the kind of support that they don't have right now. Aerial bombardments are not going to be sufficient to liberate Tripoli. And on the other hand, what they really need is to have a single voice supporting them at the United Nations Security Council. As long as there is this division among Security Council members, we're going to have this drag on several more months. And that is really a tragedy that the Libyans don't need at this point.
Dr. Kashishan, we appreciate your time. Thank you, sir.